What's good, Cubers? It's your boy Matt, and I'm back. We're going to do part 2 of our new Cube Staple series today. Shout out to Max who requested these videos. These go out to you. Now, before we go any further, I do want to take a minute to mention, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button so that you can stay up to date on our Card of the Week stuff, our Cube series, all the different videos and content that we got going on. Hit that like and subscribe button. Come on, press it. Press it. Alright, we got time for that. We're moving on. We're going to look at red, green, multicolored, and colorless today. Talk about some new cards. Let's get started. So the first red card I want to point you to is Krinko 10 Street Kingpin. Alright, 2 in a red. Whenever Krinko attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on it, and then create a number of 1/1 red goblin creature tokens equal to Krinko's power. Now I know what you're thinking. There's a bunch of these in Cube. Hanwar Garrison, Najeela, Legion Warboss, Goblin Rabblemaster. I hear you, but let me suggest this to you. Play the Rabblemaster for sure, he's number 1. But then play Krinko over Warboss, and here's why. You might land swings with the Warboss in the beginning, but eventually the Warboss himself is too small to keep swinging, and he gets killed. Not to mention he's easily removed with any kind of bolt, shock, direct damage, just burns him right off the board. But after 2 swings, Krinko is actually really hard to get rid of himself, and his tokens don't have to attack, which does slow him down a little bit, but it also lets him save up those tokens. You don't have to just give them away, so that eventually you can turn your whole board sideways and there are too many tokens for your opponents to deal with. Not to mention he works really well with buff effects, any kind of equipment, and Krinko gets out of hand in a hurry. So if you're just playing the Warboss or just Hanwar Garrison, I would play Krinko, Goblin Rabblemaster first, but then Krinko after him. Take a look, try out this new War of the Spark card. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. Next is Goblin Crater Maker. Now I know I dissed this card just a little bit in the Guilds of Ravnica set review because he wasn't everything I wanted him to be. That said, he's still pretty awesome, and if you're not running him in your cube in the 2 slot, you probably should be. He's got a 2/2 body, which is nice. You can always sack him off to deal 2 damage to a creature, and you can destroy target colorless non-land permanent, which means this guy doesn't just eat artifacts, he also eats Eldrazi at instant speed. Now, I haven't done that very much in my cube. I don't have a whole lot of giant flying spaghetti monsters soaring around, but flexibility is key. And if you're playing red, red doesn't have a lot of flexibility, and it doesn't have a lot of artifact removal. So, strongly recommend play the Crater Maker. Alright, he's not the card I thought he was going to be, but he is still really good, and he's quickly becoming a staple. The next card I want to look at is the Dire Fleet Daredevil. For 1 and a red, you get a 2/1 first striker. When he enters the battlefield, exile an instant or sorcery from your opponent's graveyard. You may cast that card this turn. You may spend mana as though it were any type of mana to cast that spell. If this card would be put into the graveyard this turn, exile it instead. So, Dire Fleet Daredevil quickly becoming a cube staple because there's so many great instants and sorceries. You're going to have your threats removed. You just are. But Dire Fleet lets you play him and use your opponent's removal against their creatures, clearing the way for your red aggro strategies. So, Dire Fleet Daredevil is really good at getting value out of your opponent's graveyard, and value is something that red typically needs a lot of. They tend to run out of gas, red decks run out of steam. This is a great way to get 2 cards for 1. A 2/1 first striker and your opponent's best instant or sorcery. So, Dire Fleet Daredevil. Card's pretty good. Take a look. Speaking of red aggro, let's talk about Kari Zev. Kari Zev is fantastic. She is first strike, she has menace, and then whenever she attacks, you get a 2/1 monkey? Who doesn't want a monkey? That monkey token is amazing too. But still, Kari Zev is hard to block, and with just a little bit of burn, she eats your opponent's blockers as well, and they have to put 2 things in front of her, which is ridiculous. Most of the time, your opponent can't block Kari, which means they're forced to block the monkey token, which you then just remake the following turn. So Kari Zev is a great aggressive creature who swings in, is hard to block, has first strike, so you combine her with a lightning bolt and she's lethal to a lot of creatures. Kari Zev is a great aggro staple for just 2 mana, and that card is dirt cheap. Go pick up Kari, play her in the 2-drop. You won't be disappointed. And you get a monkey token for your cube. Just saying. Monkey token, that's awesome. Now, I know that I'm going to talk about Chandra, and she's amazing, but my pick for the new red cube staple is a Braid. This card is so good for red players, guys. 2 mana to deal 3 damage to any target creature or destroy an artifact. Oh, flexibility is just so good. I love it. So, you can clear the way for your red aggro deck for your creatures to swing in, clear the way for Krinko the War Boss to do his thing, or Winter Orb holding you down, blow that sucker up. Your opponent tinkered into play Sundering Titan, feels bad. A Braid is just so good, so strong, so flexible, and at uncommon, guys. Go pick up a Braid. You know you're playing a damage spell that's just subpar. Play a Braid instead. That card is wonderful. You're welcome. You're welcome, alright? You're welcome. The last red card I want to talk about is Chandra, Torch of Defiance. Now this could have been my pick for best new staple because she's probably the best Chandra ever printed. Look at all that text. 4 mana. Exile the top card of your library. You may cast that card. If you don't, Chandra deals 2 damage to each opponent. Look, here's a card. I don't want it. Take 2. Or, look, here's a card. More value. Card draw in red. Thank you. Plus 1-er. Get 2 red mana. She's a ramp spell in red. You want to cast that big giant Inferno Titan a couple of turns early? Feels pretty good. You can -3 Chandra and deal 4 damage to target creature. For those of you in New Standard, she's Lava Coil on a stick, and you can do it the moment she comes down. -7, you get an emblem whenever you cast a spell. This emblem deals 5 damage to target creature or player. You ultimate Chandra and the game is over. The game is over, alright? I'll cast Lightning Bolt. Deal you 3. Oh, emblem triggers, take 5 more. That's 8, you're at 12. That's insane. So Chandra is the best Chandra ever printed. I know she's still a little bit pricey, that she's still at 11 bucks, but the fact that she has rotated out of Standard and is still a $10 card should tell you everything you need to know about her. Chandra is good. She's the new premier Red Walker. But let's talk green for a second. And the first green card is my #1 pick, and that is the Virtuous Gearhulk. Holy cow, 3 double green for an artifact creature construct. Trample 4/4. When Virtuous Gearhulk enters the battlefield, distribute 4 +1/+1 counters among any number of target creatures you control. So, you can play him and spread the counters all over the board, or you can play him and drop the counters on him and have a 8/8 trample. So good. Just so good, so flexible, and I didn't even point this out yet, he's an artifact creature, which means he synergizes with all the artifact synergies inside your cube. This guy's actually another Tinker target. You can play an island, drop a Soul Ring, turn 2, cast Tinker, Virtuous Gearhulk, 8/8 Trampler on the board. If your opponent doesn't have an answer, they're dead. This card is really good, guys, and I think that he's probably one of the new premier green 5-drops. I didn't even mention the best part. You can upgrade your cube for under $1. This card is 70 cents, guys. 70 cents, and it's one of the best 5-drops you can be playing. So good. Try out the Gearhulk. But still, let's look at 2 other green creatures. The Remanap Excavator. You may play land cards from your graveyard. It's Crucible of World on a creature. This guy works so well with fetch lands. Crack a fetch, put it in the yard, next turn play the fetch out of the yard, crack it again, and just thin your deck out. And this card combined with a card like Strip Mine or Wasteland, I've just had opponents just scoop. Just, okay, yep, I see it, you've demonstrated the combo, I'm good, concede, let's go to game 2. What about this? Remanap Excavator on turn 3, Armageddon on turn 4, scoop, because you can still play all of your lands out of your yard. If you're playing any kind of Lands Matter synergies in your cube, if you're running Nissa Vital Force, if you're running Life of the Loam or Azusa Lost But Seeking, Wildfires, and Armageddons, you can't help but include the Remanap Excavator. He just makes all of those strategies so much better, and the fact that he still just works with fetch lands allows him to be a source of consistent land drops for decks that play him that aren't playing aggressive land strategies. So, try out the Excavator. The Duskwatch Recruiter, we're really playing him for the front half, which is pay 3, look at the top 3 cards of your library, reveal a creature card from among them and put them into your hand, put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. Guys, green ramps better than any color, and what better mana sink could green have than a card that lets them filter more creatures out of their deck and then cast them. Duskwatch Recruiter is just a really solid mana sink and a good 2-drop. It doesn't quite pass the Vindicate test, but long-term value wins games, and he's not so expensive that if it gets blown up, you're going to miss it. So, try out the Duskwatch Recruiter. The card's really, really good. It's at uncommon. It's dirt cheap. You won't be disappointed. I could really only think of 2 colorless cards that are quickly becoming cube staples, and the first one is Emrakul, the Promised End. Ugh, Emrakul, she's so cool! I couldn't help it, I had to do it, sorry. So anyway, Emrakul, the Promised End, costs 1 less to cast for each card type amongst the cards in your graveyards. When you cast Emrakul, gain control of target opponent during that player's next turn, and after that, that player takes an extra turn. Flying, trample, flample, protection from instants. So, once you drop Emrakul, you tend to win the game. A lot of removal in cube is at instant speed, and as a result, Emrakul dodges all of it. Now, I will say I'm going to get some pushback on this because a lot of people prefer Emrakul of the Eon's Torn, and I respect that. Annihilator 6 is a game ender, I'm not going to lie. But this Emrakul is actually easy enough to hard cast that like ramp decks can get into it, and they don't have to necessarily cheat it into play. Because you're going to have fetches in your yard, you're going to have creatures and instants in your yard, sorceries in your yard, and suddenly she's not 13 anymore, she's 9. And I know that's still a lot of mana, but a ramp deck can hit 9 mana. I also kind of like that Emrakul goes to your yard and doesn't reshuffle your deck, which means she can be played in Reanimator strategies. Now, you didn't cast her, so you don't get the turn steal effect, but you still get a 13/13 flying trample protection from instant creature that's going to end the game in 2 turns. So, Emrakul the Promised End, really good. I understand if you prefer to play the other Emrakul, but I like this one because I like the fact that it can be recurred out of the graveyard. But, my pick for best colorless card, best new staple, Walking Ballista. Guys, this card was bananas in Standard, and it's still bananas now. Double X, Walking Ballista enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it. Pay 4, put a +1/+1 counter on it. Remove a +1/+1 counter on Walking Ballista. It deals 1 damage to target creature or player. What makes Walking Ballista is so good is that he passes the Vindicate test. The moment your opponent tries to kill Walking Ballista, you pull all the counters off it and just sling damage all over the field. And if your opponent doesn't removal, it's a mana sink and it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and then you just sling those counters. Walking Ballista changes combat math because when your other creatures attack in, Walking Ballista can finish off whatever blocked it. Walking Ballista is so good, and it's colorless. Every deck wants it. I actually think that Walking Ballista is first pickable in draft, that you can just pick it first, pack one, pick one, and you can work it into almost anything that you build, which means that it's super flexible and it leaves you a lot of options open. So yeah, Walking Ballista. That's my pick. That's the colorless staple. Now I know Emrakul is really, really pricey. I think it's around 25-ish bucks, maybe 20. And Walking Ballista is at 10. If you can only play one, I actually think you pick up the Ballista over Emrakul. I just think it's more flexible and more decks are going to want it than Emrakul. I know style points and flavor points suggest that you need Emrakul over the Ballista because, like, who doesn't want Emrakul rocking in their cube? But I think Ballista is actually the better cube card. Now we can thank Guilds of Ravnica for some amazing new multicolored cards, and the first one I want to talk about is Rhythm of the Wild. If you are playing Fires of Yavimaya in your cube, I actually think, contrary to what others might think, Rhythm of the Wild is just a straight upgrade. It's a straight upgrade. You get flexibility. Your creatures can't be countered, and you can choose, do I want haste or do I need a bigger body? And that choice is what just makes it better than Fires. You have to sack Fires to get the buff, the 2/2 buff, and you only get it once. Whereas every creature you play with Rhythm of the Wild can come in with a +1/+1 counter, so you get more value over time. And sometimes against control decks, you can just drop Rhythm of the Wild on turn 3, and oh my gosh, peace of mind. Just peace of mind. Every creature I play is going to hit the field, and you're going to have to deal with it, and I hope you picked up that Wrath of God during the draft, because otherwise, I'm going to beat your brains in. Gruul needs all the help it can get anyway. Strongly encourage you to pick up and play Rhythm of the Wild, but my pick for best multicolored card is actually Knight of Autumn. The card is so flexible. 3 mana, You can make it a 4/3. You can destroy an artifact or an enchantment. You can gain 4 life. Knight of Autumn does it all. And if you get to flicker it, you can make all those choices again. Knight of Autumn is really, really good. It's really, really strong. It's the best Selesnya card printed in a long time. I think it's one of the new Selesnya staples. You gotta have it. Knight of Autumn is just one of the new best staple cards in Cube, period. Wait a minute. What are these highlight marks? I picked Knight of Autumn. That was the best staple card in Cube. Alright, I lied. Knight of Autumn, Judith, Assassin's Trophy. You need all 3. There is no single best new multicolored card in Cube. You need Judith, you need Assassin's Trophy because it's the best Golgari removal spell, period, and you need Knight of Autumn. I think these 3 cards have quickly become the best cards in their guild, or some of the best cards in their guild. Judith is probably the 3rd best Rakdos card. Assassin's Trophy is the best removal in Golgari, period. It beats out Abrupt Decay, Maelstrom Pulse, Pernicious Deed, and Knight of Autumn is probably the 2nd or 3rd best Selesnya card. So, play Judith. She changes combat math, and sometimes your opponent just can't wipe the board because they'll die. And then Assassin Trophy, it handles all threats. All threats, even lands. Your opponent's got Library of Alexandria, well, poof, now you've got a Plains. Deal with that. So, those are my picks. These are the best new Cube staples. You're welcome. That's going to do it for today, Cubers. Be sure to comment below and let me know if you think I missed a card, or if there's a card you want us to cover for Card of the Week. Let us know in the comments below, and we'll do that too. Be sure to hit the like and subscribe button so you'll know when our next videos are coming out, and until next time, keep cubing, my friends.